Good morning, everybody. This is Michael from Spades Consulting, and we are going to talk about the CEOs, the corporates, companies, etc., that are whining and complaining that Gen Z's work ethic sucks, that they honestly can't do anything with Gen Z labor, and the fact that Gen Z just doesn't get their rocks off, all right, in terms of getting corporates' rocks off. Anyway, so which, before we get started, I will admit I've seen a lot of Gen Z workers who do honestly suck at their jobs. But at the same time, they here's your defense right here. The system coming off of the boomer way of doing things, of increasingly creating this gigantic autism structure to fucking everything in society. Oh, God. Give me just a second. Ah, I hate the plague. Anyway, the boomer system increasingly was focused on just autismifying every single facet of life. We're going to put rules up everywhere. We're going to create structure. We're going to have the rules. We're going to have credentials, and we're going to turn and credentialism wide scale. And it's just going to go on and on and on, and we're going to compartmentalize everything to the point where, there have been times, like a perfect example of this, the second IRL job that I had in life, working for a home improvement store. I won't say which, but I was I was the guy who fixed equipment who got yelled at for it. I was the guy who swapped light bulbs and got yelled at for it. A light bulb is out. Honestly, you're sitting there, you're looking at it like, ah, Jesus fucking Christ. All right, somebody give me a bulb. All right, I'm going up there. And then out of nowhere, management and supervisors freaking the fuck out because I changed a light bulb. Okay. That nearly cost me my job there 2 or 3 times. Okay. Why? Because everything is structured and credentialized and liability and legal and all of this bullshit, the company would pay, even though they were paying me peanuts, like 11.50 back then. Instead of paying 11.50 and sending one of your own people up to swap a light bulb, the company would hire out to electrical contractors and pay like 30 to 50 an hour plus travel time to have a parts van. And bear in mind, it's a fucking hardware store. We literally have the lights on the shelf. They bring in electrical contractors at 30 to 50 an hour plus travel time plus parts. Plus parts. They literally go and they buy the light in store, and then they bust that open, and then they attach that to the receipt, to the total bill. And it's just like, you guys really suck at this. You guys really suck at this. But the reason why they did it was for the insurance liability. They did not want to, and it's not just the liability of sending somebody up, but it's the liability of, if for whatever reason the clamp in one of those lights fails and the light tube comes falling from the sky and cracks somebody over the head and gets glass shards in their eye, then the electrical contractor's insurance gets contacted to go deal with that and pay for it and deal with the probably $1 million and broken Fifi, hurt Fifi costs and liabilities. And it's just like, at that level, it makes sense. All right. Unfortunately, we live in a very litigious society, but think about the message that that sends. You're young, you're capable, you're competent. and you are not allowed to do a simple task that is obvious that it needs to get done, but you can't do it because the second you do it, you're punished for it. This has literally been the existence for multiple generations now. This happened under the boomers, and it has persisted since. Why don't these people have initiative? Why don't they work hard? Working harder gets them nothing. Working harder may pump up the overall earnings for the business, but they're not going to see a fucking dime for it. If they say the wrong thing, they're fired. If, God forbid, they catch an accusation, they go through HR hell and then they're fired. Um, there's a lot of, and it's a thing. It's it's stupid bullshit. It is stupid bullshit, but it's part of the whole infantilization process. This whole shift, primarily around liability and the legal side of things, has infantilized and effectively subjugated multiple generations now. And people are looking around like, why the fuck does everything suck? And it's just like you guys literally wanted this, you supported this. You know, like if let's say the something else that's simple, let's say flip up tray brakes or something for a piece of fucking equipment like a cherry picker or something. Let's say a little plastic tray or something stupid. All right, bolt breaks. You find another bolt, put it in, tighten that bitch up. You're good. No, you're not. Tear it apart. Fuck. All right. Or another example would be let's say the company hires landscapers to do the landscaping outside. Well, if you go out there, if they don't show up for whatever reason, or they're in between contracts because they just let the last contractor go, or their entire workforce got picked up by ICE, um, obviously, if it gets on your nerves, as it might get on some people's nerves, seeing a blade of grass grow higher than a quarter inch, if you were to go out there, just again, let's assume it's a hardware store. If you were to go out there, load up a weed whacker with some off the shelf high test or something, and load some string into it and go deal with the grass. Or, well, I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to take a brand new fresh mower, but if you were to go out and try to cut the grass yourself, the second that you slice a blade of grass, you're fired. All right. Little things like that. The little things that make sense to people to deal with. All right. Companies will literally shit their brains out. They will shit bricks and go immediately to, why the fuck are you doing that? How dare you? It's not in your job description. Whenever it's something reasonable, it's not in your job description. It's above your pay grade. All right. But whenever it's unreasonable, whenever it benefits the company in terms of freer labor or more efficient labor, they don't give a fuck. All right. When you figure out how to legitimately bend yourself over backwards for them, they will happily accept that because you'll just break your own back for them and they won't be on the hook. They will just find a way to get rid of you and not have to pay the workers' comp or anything else for running you into the ground. All right. It's like this with another perfect example. Silence, Microsoft. Another perfect example. Military budgets, government budgets in general. If you have a good year where you don't need to burn through your entire budget in the military, if you have any kind of surplus, if you did not use, like if you used $900,000 instead of a solid million, okay? there will be a panic to figure out how to spend 100 million, or not 100 million, $100,000 as quickly as humanly possible. Because if you manage to save 10% of your operating expense, next time you go to get funding, that's your new target. That's your new target. So if just one off happenstance you manage to save 100K in operating expenses, next year's budget, you're going to be stuck at $900,000 instead of a solid million. And chances are you're probably going to need that extra $100,000 that year. All right. The structuring of society, the rules, the fact that everything is legal and litigious, and the fact that you literally have to, whether you go to college or not, you have to learn legalese. All right, and you got to learn it well. All right, you got to see how companies and how these contracts are written to fuck you over, because they will. They absolutely will. Mm. After all of these years of beating people over the head for doing what makes absolutely perfect sense, people stopped caring and people started doing exactly as they were told. Malicious compliance. That's the entire economy now. That is everybody now. All right. And after all of the subjugation, the infantilization, like a perfect example, going back to the video I did not too long ago, the benefit that every company needs to offer. All right, essentially a worker shuttle service. If you want to ensure that you have labor and that they can show up because the quality of vehicles has collapsed, and not even the quality, but just trying to get repair parts for anything is increasingly impossible or excessively expensive in order to be legal in states that have actual requirements that your brake pads have some brakes left to them. All right. In order to keep up with all of these new dependencies, it's gotten so expensive that the only way that you can ensure that you have labor that shows up is if you hire people and then go and bring them to and from work. All right. And it's not exactly a massive problem yet, but it's about to be. All right. Because the system has been struggling and grinding along for a while now. All right. Every year, things have, in the real economy, have managed to get mm, slowly worse and worse over time. But the cars themselves also infantilized. It's just like, well, why the fuck don't you fix your car? Just pay to fix your car. Too expensive. Why don't you fix it yourself? Too complicated. You're locked out of all the systems. Hyundai, I think it was Hyundai, to do your own brakes, you had to download an app and do all this other shit. And it's just like most people were already pissed off about custom tooling when it comes to the European cars. But the fact that you are going to try to put these things behind a paywall, behind an app, and even the mechanics suffer from this, because not only do you have to pay for an Altel scanner, but now you have to pay for an Altel scanner, and instead of getting free updates, maybe you get free updates for a year, 6 months to a year. But then after that, if you want any further updates, you have to pay for all those updates. And if you want access to new models, you have to pay. And they don't want you to just pay once, they want you to pay monthly, and they want to get you constantly hooked onto the hamster wheel to constantly pay them more money. All right, and then Alltel is just the beginning because all of the dealerships are going out there, or I should say, all of the auto manufacturers, even though really all they produce is badge cars now, where they go out and they find a platform to build their cars out of. Most of the cars are essentially badge cars, where the Volvos are Fords, the Fords are Volvos. All right, the parts change, the exact electronic modules change, but fundamentally same car, same frame, same builds, and it's just a different badge on them. All right, like it's impossible to keep up with these things. All right. So people can't maintain their own vehicles anymore, and their own vehicles are shoddy at best. All right, as the overall complexity grows, the knowledge gap gets to the point where it's just not feasible for most people to maintain any newer vehicles. So they're constantly going to the mechanic, they're constantly in the shop, they're constantly paying 1 or 2 weeks worth of paychecks, if not more, to try to keep their busted ass cars on the road. And the sad fact is, you got cars from '93 that are chugging along just fine. Yeah, they're a bit rusty, but they still run. Old Toyotas, some of the old Fords, they still run. But what was it? One, especially after like 2008, 2009, there was the beginning of another round of hedonic adjustment, essentially, where seals used to last, like door seals used to last like 20 years. Now you're lucky if they last 5. It's just impossible to keep up with. So if you want a reliable labor force, yeah, you're gonna have to go hire them and pick them up. That's what it's going to come to, or you're just not gonna have labor. And a lot of companies are running into that. Like, there's no shortage of people who are willing to work, especially in the younger generations. They're willing to work, they're willing to sacrifice, but they're not going to work so they can break even, so they can go into the red. They're not, and most of them, like, reliable transportation is a base level requirement for most jobs. Most of these kids, I mean, Jesus Christ, they can't keep a fucking car on the road. Their options in terms of used cars are the junk that other people can't keep up with anymore. So they get a hold of those, and next thing you know, they got to get towed to work. All right, and they're paying through the nose for it, and they're having to tap anybody who has some decency, anybody who has heart and the ability to sacrifice a little bit, so maybe they have a fucking shot. Like, they're struggling. They're fucking struggling. When it comes to the corporates, when it comes to companies and CEOs, the LinkedIn princess and princesses whining and bitching about the labor force that they helped create through their fucking bad decisions. All right, like, fuck these people. Legitimately, these people, you shouldn't even fucking listen to them. Mm. They can go out there and get fluffed up and pimped up by Forbes or Fortune or any of the other fucking sites or magazines. It doesn't matter. Oh my God, this person on LinkedIn said that you should work 100,000 hours a week. And believe you me, if corporates could somehow if corporates had the ability to add an 8th day to the week and get you to work them, they'd do it. All right? They would absolutely do it. If they could completely bend nature around them and their bloviated bullshit, they would. They would. But we've reached the breaking point. All right? When it comes to the companies complaining about the younger generations, sucks. Tough shit. Guess you should have paid more. All right? Guess you should have fucking took care of your workforces when you had the chance. because if you paid their parents better, maybe they would have been more competent when these kids grew up. Maybe they would have spent time with their kids, teaching their kids how to maintain vehicles. Maybe, just maybe. If people didn't have to constantly borrow money for vehicles, they would focus more, just have a vehicle that runs for a little bit. Maybe people would have focused on getting reliable vehicles that would last longer. All right, and that would be repairable, that'd be maintainable by themselves over a longer period of time. This is the thing, you cannot. A lot of people want to argue that it's not a closed loop, that it's not a zero sum game. But the reality is, when you honestly drill down to the deepest parts of economic theory, which really only took off because of the boomer post war period, when you really drill down into economics, it does come down to a zero sum game. And it's just like, well, what about the growth in the economies that we've seen? Um, it's all been paper. I'm sorry to tell you. There's no actual value. Your house is not worth $300,000. It's just we printed that much more money. You know, the GDP is mostly spending by the rich, but when it comes to the value of the houses, when it comes to the values of all of the machinery, the people, everything, it is a zero sum game. You make a gain in one area and you think you're solid, but the reality is you made a gain in one area by screwing over another area. All right, like the wealthy became obscenely wealthy, and now we have wealth gaps that are so massive that, yeah, a lot of people aren't going to become doctors and lawyers and all of this other shit because there's no breath left in the markets. All right, it's just like, yeah, you could do tons of things in the West. You can, if you're willing to do them for free. That's the sad reality of it, because the economies, local economies, are so weak. You can only support a handful of people not working at a time, or you can only support, you can have 10 vet clinics in one area, and maybe one or two of them survive, maybe even three. But even if people have a whole fuckload of pets for some reason in that area, it's like these people can only handle so many costs, and their ability to maintain costs in general is falling over time. All right, the fact that we've had over 50% inflation in the past 5 years, the fact that we've had roughly 10% inflation every year in terms of real numbers, 50% or 10% inflation every year since 1995 in the United States. 10% inflation every year since 1995. But with Clinton, we had a surplus. Again, you're just fucking with the numbers. You print more money and you can falsify growth to the ends of the earth. But when you actually look around, everything's increasingly run down. It's like you have $300,000 houses with mold problems where the roofs are failing and you got fucking bug infestations. Yeah, it's not worth 300,000. All right, the 300,000 is really, it's a $30,000 house with a whole lot of central bank money printing behind it. All right, like coming back to the video talking about Malthus. Malthus wasn't wrong. He just wasn't creative enough. All right, it's like, yeah, okay, we have with the Industrial Revolution and modern machinery and modern agriculture, we can produce 10 times the food for 1/1000th of the energy demand. We can create 100 times more food from every acre. All right, fantastic. All right, but it's 1/100th as nutritious for you, which then leads to people fucking binge eating into obesity. All right, like this is a thing. This is a thing. Yeah, you can definitely stretch out wealth. You can do that. You can inflate wealth. You can stretch it out. You can make one tomato turn into 10 tomatoes with the right agricultural science. But that's not going to stop the fact that you're going to have to eat 10 tomatoes now to get what you used to get from one. And shocker, you end up eating more and more because this is the thing. A large part of the problem with the food industry when it comes to agriculture is most of the nutrient dense calories that used to come from natural, food that's been grown for decades, millennia, centuries. It's been replaced by stretching it out. Like, yes, you get more tomatoes and you get more carbon content in it. It's in the end, you're not really making progress. What you're really doing is you are stretching more and less resources across more and more people. And then when you get all sorts of diseases, endocrine disruption, all sorts of problems, diabetes, hypertension, all of this shit, you get all of these fucking problems and they compound over time and they just get worse. And then the weight on the healthcare system gets worse. And it's just like all you're doing is shifting costs from one side to another. All right. Yeah, you can make more food and look at the consequences. It's you can burn up petrol all day long. Fantastic. Here are the consequences. All right. What makes it worse is that the people who are legitimately in charge of the systems in the West, whenever they get a bright idea, God help these fucking people. God help these fucking people. They're retarded. They're legitimately retarded. Every systems thinker is fucking retarded. Believe me, I am also a systems thinker. I am retarded. All right? At least in a certain aspect because of it. I like to put things in boxes. But I'm also old enough now that I know that you can't just fucking put everything in boxes and expect things to work out. All right? But they get a bright idea like the great replacement theory where it's just like, all right, yeah, we made things so unbearable that people stopped fucking, and now we have a birth crisis. We have a birth rate crisis, and we're not going to have enough people at the bottom working and paying for the retirees. So let's just flood these countries with all the migrants in the world. And oh shit, we brought them to the West, and now they also aren't fucking. Damn. Oh, and they're collecting welfare. Even better. Nah. And then there you go, another bright fucking idea up in fucking smoke. Again. And they keep doing this. They really do. They keep doing this. They think that they can cheat reality. They think that, just shifting a few things here and there, they can escape fundamentals and just the way that life works. All right? They're going to fail with everything. All right, it's pretty consistent. Every single time they come up with a decent fucking idea, an idea that they consider decent, none of them go the next step in thinking, all right, how is this actually going to roll out? How is it going to fail because we're not fucking looking forward ahead enough? How is it going to fail? Because every single one of their plans and ideas, for the large part, every single plan and idea fails. How the hell did we get into conspiracy? Oh, good lord. For entertainment purposes only. The views are these are personal views and do not reflect the beliefs, feelings, standards of Spades Consulting LLC. Anyway, when it comes to the young kids, not being quote unquote good workers or being unable to satisfy modern labor business demands. Fuck these corporates. Fuck them. They wanted this. They got it. They can't complain that the younger generations, they don't get the right to complain that the younger generations are infantilized and suck when we've had over 50 fucking years of going deeper and deeper into the systems think rabbit holes that create people who have no initiative. You know, if the consequences of being forward thinking is consistently punishing people, if people go out of their way to do what logically is right, all right, it's oh god, a perfect example is comes from China. You're gonna love this. So if somebody falls over in China, all right, from what I've heard, if somebody falls over in China, if you try to lend aid, you know, help them up, try to get them to a doctor or a hospital or some shit, if you do that legally, you're on the hook. All right, you're on the hook. You're expected to cover them and possibly their medical bills for being the good Samaritan. All right, for trying to help a brother out. All right, that's another perfect example of this. People go out and they try to do the right thing and are consistently punished whenever they do. All right, another perfect fucking example. If somebody hits a deer and for whatever reason it looks like a real bad wreck, if somebody calls the wub-wubs to show up and possibly, you know, find out, all right, well, what the hell happened? All right, you hit a deer, congratulations. If somebody calls the wub-wubs, all of a sudden, it goes from one kind of case to a different kind of case. And then the insurance company will try to get out of covering it because it's a different kind of case now. And then the only option you have as an individual is to, well, if the insurance isn't going to cover it and now I'm stuck in this position, the only option is to go after the person who thought they were trying to do a good thing. All right. The path to hell is paved in good intentions, and we are most certainly on the exit ramp into hell. All right, there's no way getting around that. So, as far as the companies and corporations are concerned, you all benefited from infantilizing the younger generations. You very much pushed them to not have any kind of agency or initiative in their lives. You demanded that they rely more and more on you so you can profit off of every single thing that goes wrong in their life or limit liability. Um, well, profit on everything in life in general, but also limit your corporate liability wherever possible. You did this, so you get to eat the shit sandwich. You get to eat the consequences of a labor force that you don't particularly like and doesn't particularly like you either. It's not like you're paying them worth a damn. They're never going to be able to afford a house, never going to be able to afford a decent fucking car, although they don't even make those anymore. Their entire lives, like, there's a reason why you have Gen Z rebellions in other countries, and it's probably going to happen in the West in one form or another as well. You've subjugated them, and you essentially put a tax on their entire lives. So, yeah, you get to eat this shit sandwich. You're not going to outsource it offshore. You're not going to inflate it away. You're going to have to go out of your way if you want Gen Z workers to show up, do the job, and do all the shit. You have to start being understanding and reasonable to these people and stop being a bunch of pussies afraid of the insurance liabilities for changing a fucking light bulb. All right, we'll end it there. This has been Michael from Spades Consulting. If you're interested in personal or business consulting, stop by www.spadesconsulting.com without the dash. If you are interested in written content, check out the Substack. I know I'm lacking on it lately, but honestly, I'm trying to put more effort into the videos, or at least getting them done, so you guys have something to listen to, should you be interested. And, like the video, share, subscribe, ding the bell, hype, do all the things. All the TISM tasks. All the micro interactions. And with that, you guys have a good one. I'll see you next time.